Welcome to the Autism Infocast. I'm Peter Clark, founder and chairman of the Autism Info Center. Our podcasts delve into every part of autism and neurodiversity, and we want to help you spread understanding, respect, and kindness for those whose lives are affected. Whether you're autistic yourself, or whether you know or care for someone who's autistic, or maybe you just come into contact with autistic people in everyday life. Either way, please feel free to check out our hundreds of articles, videos, books, and training courses at autisminfocenter.org. And I'll leave you now in the capable hands of today's hosts, Jemima and Theo. Over to you.
Welcome to the podcast. Today, we're really going to get into understanding autism. You know, there's just so much misinformation out there, so many myths. So our goal here is pretty simple. Cut through that confusion, swap the fiction for fact, and hopefully give you a much clearer picture of what autism actually is.
Yeah, that's a great goal.
Yeah.
Because fundamentally, autism is a lifelong neurodevelopmental difference. What that really means is that an autistic person's brain just processes information differently right from the start, from birth. And this affects, how they see the world, how they communicate, how they interact with other people.
So it's not like an illness you can catch.
Exactly. That's crucial. It's not an illness or a disease. It can't be cured. It's more like their brain has a different operating system. It works differently. And maybe the most important thing to grasp is that autism is a spectrum condition.
Right. The spectrum. You hear that term a lot.
You do. And it means if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. That's it. Everyone is different. The characteristics, the support needs, they vary hugely from person to person. So no blanket assumptions.
That's such an important point right there. A difference, not a disease. But despite that, these myths, they really stick around, don't they? So, okay, let's maybe unpack some of the most common ones, because even if you listening kind of know better, these ideas still pop up and can make things really difficult.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest ones, you see it everywhere, especially in the media.
The savant genius thing?
Exactly. The idea that all autistic people are sort of secret geniuses, particularly in like math or music. Now, don't get me wrong, many autistic individuals do have incredible strengths. Things like amazing memory, intense focus, honesty, visual thinking, attention to detail, spotting patterns, really remarkable skills.
But it's not universal.
Not at all. Yeah. And assuming everyone fits that mold ignores the huge diversity. Plus, it sets up unrealistic expectations, or worse, it dismisses the real struggles someone might be having in other areas of life.
Yeah, I can see how that would be really unhelpful. Okay, what about another common one, this idea that autistic people lack empathy or emotion? Where does that come from? It feels quite harsh.
It does feel harsh, and it's generally untrue. It really stems from differences in social communication. So things like understanding nonverbal cues, subtle facial expressions, body language, tone of voice that can be tricky.
Yeah.
Or maybe taking language very literally. Sarcasm might go straight over their head.
Okay.
And that back and forth flow of conversation can be difficult too.
Right.
But, and this is the key thing, having trouble showing empathy in the way people typically expect or reading those social signals, that absolutely does not mean they don't feel empathy or care about others.
So it's a communication barrier, not a feeling barrier.
Precisely. It's often about understanding the unwritten social rules, not a lack of core human feeling.
That makes a huge difference in how you perceive a situation. Now, we should probably touch on one that thankfully is less believed now, but still causes so much damage when it surfaces. The idea that vaccines cause autism.
Right. And we need to be absolutely clear on this. That claim is factually wrong. It's been thoroughly, completely discredited. The original study, well, it was deeply flawed, ethically compromised. The scientific consensus is overwhelming. Vaccines do not cause autism, period.
So why did it even start?
It often comes down to timing, unfortunately. Routine vaccinations happen around the same age that autism characteristics might become more noticeable. So some parents mistakenly connected the two events, but correlation isn't causation.
And it's led to real harm, hasn't it? Lower vaccination rates.
Yes, and needless anxiety for parents. It's a really harmful myth.
Kind of like that older, awful idea about refrigerator mothers blaming parents.
Ugh, yes. That's another one's completely outdated and harmful. Thankfully, those theories have been totally disproven and retracted. We now know autism is neurodevelopmental. It has roots in genetics, environmental factors. It's there from birth. Parenting style has nothing to do with causing it. Blaming parents is just cruel and wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, another important distinction. autism versus mental illness, why is getting that right so important for support?
It's critical because autism is a neurodevelopmental condition. It's about brain development. It's not a mental illness like, say, schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. It's not a disease. Now, autistic people can and often do experience mental health challenges.
Yeah.
Anxiety, depression, these are common.
But they're not the autism itself.
Exactly. They often arise because of the stress of navigating a world not built for autistic ways of thinking and being. The constant effort, the misunderstandings, the sensory overload, that takes a toll. But autism itself isn't the mental health disorder. Confusing the two means people might not get the right kind of support for their neurotype, or their mental health needs might be overlooked.
Which brings us back to that spectrum idea again, doesn't it? When you hear people say, oh, all autistic people do X, or they all act like Y.
Right. It completely misses the point of the spectrum. It's like saying all flowers are red. Autism affects everyone differently. Characteristics show up in so many ways, at different intensities. Everyone has unique strengths, unique challenges, unique needs.
Yeah.
Generalizations are just inaccurate, full stop.
And the last big myth, maybe? This idea that autistic people can't live a normal life? That feels incredibly limiting.
It is incredibly limiting and pretty offensive, really. What even is a normal life? With the right support, understanding, and importantly, accommodations, reasonable adjustments, autistic people absolutely can and do lead fulfilling, meaningful lives. They contribute massively to society, to workplaces, to communities. Challenging that narrow idea of normal is key.
Okay, so we've busted some myths. But debunking is one thing. Understanding the actual lived experience, the day-to-day realities, that's maybe even more important. So this is where it gets really interesting, I think. Understanding the practical challenges autistic individuals might face living in a world largely set up for, well, neurotypical people.
Yeah, and shifting from myths to reality is vital. Because those negative attitudes and misunderstandings we talked about, they have real consequences. They can create barriers in social situations, in school, finding a job, keeping a job. But again, got to stress it varies massively. Not everyone faces every challenge or to the same degree. It's individual.
So when you say social communication and interaction differences, what does that actually look like? Can you give us an example?
Sure. Think about understanding subtle stuff, like reading between the lines, picking up on sarcasm, understanding body language, or maybe slight changes in facial expression. That can be really hard.
Yep.
Or taking things very literally. If you ask, can you pass the salt? They might just say yes and not actually pass it because you asked if they can, not if they will. Or maybe that back and forth rhythm of small talk feels unnatural or confusing. It's often not about not wanting to connect, but finding the rules of engagement genuinely baffling.
Right. So asking, how are you, might get a very, very detailed, honest answer.
Exactly. Instead of the expected, fine, thanks you might get the full rundown of their morning, which is honest, but not the social convention.
Okay, that makes sense. And then there's sensory processing. You mentioned the world can feel overwhelming or muted.
Yeah, both are possible. It's about how the brain processes sensory input, sounds, sights, smells, tastes, touch. Someone might be hypersensitive, meaning things feel incredibly intense, or hyposensitive, meaning they need much more input to register it, or a mix.
So a trip to the supermarket could be
absolute torture for someone hypersensitive. The bright fluorescent lights buzzing, the checkout beeps, the chatter, the clatter of carts, the competing smells from the bakery and the fish counter, maybe even the texture of the clothes they're wearing. It can all build up into sensory overload, causing intense anxiety, distress, maybe even physical pain, like fingernails on a chalkboard, but for everything.
Wow, okay. Which probably explains the strong need for routine and predictability we often hear about.
It's definitely linked. For many autistic people, routine provides structure and predictability in a world that can otherwise feel chaotic and overwhelming through sensory input or social demands. Unexpected changes, even small ones like the bus taking a different route or someone sitting in their seat, can be genuinely distressing. It disrupts that sense of control and predictability that helps them cope.
It's not about being inflexible for the sake of it.
Not usually, no. It's often a coping mechanism.
What about executive functions? Things like planning, organizing?
Yeah, executive functions. That's our brain's management system. Planning, organizing tasks, managing time, remembering steps in a process, controlling impulses. These can work differently for autistic people. So breaking down a big project into small steps might be really hard. Estimating how long something will take, tricky. Filling out complex forms, like for benefits or a job application, can be a huge hurdle because of the sequencing and organization required.
Which points to broader challenges, doesn't it? Beyond just individual interactions, there are systemic barriers in places like education, healthcare, workplaces.
Absolutely. These environments are often just not designed with autistic needs in mind. Think about healthcare. Lots of jargon, abstract explanations, busy waiting rooms, or job interviews heavily reliant on unspoken social cues and predicting what the interviewer wants to hear. Even workplace norms around socializing or communication styles can be significant barriers.
It sounds exhausting. And this brings us to something really serious, the increased vulnerability to harm or abuse.
It's a difficult but crucial topic. Sadly, yes, autistic individuals can be at higher risk. This might be due to challenges understanding social cues that signal danger, perhaps being overly trusting, or having communication differences that make it hard to report abuse or concern.
Like not recognizing manipulation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or not understanding when someone's intentions aren't good. Bullying rates, for instance, are tragically high both in school and later in the workplace. There can also be difficulties recognizing physical danger sometimes, like understanding road safety intuitively.
And navigating all of this, the sensory issues, the social confusion, the potential for harm, it must take a toll on mental health.
It absolutely does. As we touched on, anxiety and depression are significantly more common in the autistic community. It's often a direct result of the chronic stress of trying to fit into a world that isn't accommodating, dealing with isolation, bullying, and the sheer effort involved in just getting through the day.
And sometimes those mental health issues get missed.
Yes, sometimes the symptoms might be misinterpreted as just part of the person's autism, so they don't get the specific mental health support they need, which is why that distinction we made earlier is so vital.
You mentioned the effort. That ties into masking, right? Can you explain that a bit more? It sounds like putting on a performance.
That's a good way to put it. Masking, or camouflaging, is basically the conscious or unconscious effort to hide autistic traits and mimic neurotypical behaviors. It's done to try and fit in, avoid negative reactions, or simply navigate social situations.
Like forcing eye contact, even if it's painful.
Exactly. Or suppressing stims, those repetitive movements like hand flapping or rocking that actually help regulate sensory input or emotion. Or carefully scripting conversations beforehand. It might help someone pass in the short term, but it's incredibly draining, mentally and physically. It's like constant acting, and it leads to burnout, exhaustion, and worsening mental health over time. It's hidden labor.
Wow. Okay. So we've covered a lot. Debunked myths, looked at real challenges. What's the main takeaway here for you listening?
I think it's about recognizing the reality of these potential challenges, but always remembering the individuality of the person, the strengths. Understanding autism means moving beyond stereotypes. It means challenging those myths when you hear them. And it means recognizing the sheer diversity within the spectrum. If we can do that, we move towards genuine understanding, real acceptance, and showing proper respect.
Yeah. Knowing the truth really empowers all of us, doesn't it? It helps us build communities where autistic people aren't just tolerated, but truly valued for who they are, supported to live their best lives. And maybe it leaves us with a thought. We talked about how the idea of one normal life is limiting. So what other deep-seated ideas about the right way to be do we, as a society, maybe need to question to really embrace everyone? Thanks for listening to this Autism Infocast from the autisminfocenter.org.
Thank you, Jemima and Theo. I'm sure we've all learned something there today. Don't forget to visit autisminfocenter.org to hear our other episodes, browse our library of articles, see our inspiring range of books, watch our videos about autism and neurodiversity, and find out about training courses that can help you or your organization make the world a safer, happier, and more meaningful place for us all. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, please feel free to spread the word about Autism Info Center. A quick mention on your socials is always appreciated. Until next time, this is Peter Clark from autisminfocenter.org. Have a great day.